Here is a place that is very significant for Eastern Christians, because they believe that exactly in this circle we are seeing here in the middle, the second coming of Jesus, the so-called parousia, will happen. Around Jesus, we see the expected descent of the 12 apostles. There are 12 large circles, each representing one of Jesus' apostles. This place was preserved by the Muslims. They put carpet all over the floor of what used to be the church and cathedral, but they didn't cover the sacred area of the Christians. I needed to get a special permit to enter here, because we shouldn't enter the women's area of the mosque. But it's right at the beginning, so they allowed it. Because here there's this column that's known as the Column of Tears. For many centuries, the Christians who came here would stop at this column amazed, because at a single point, it seemed like a certain oil, a liquid, would seep out from inside the column. Hence the idea that the column was crying as if it had a soul. So everyone who came here would put their finger on that spot and turn it while making a request for intercession, asking for blessings. Oh, there's an announcement because the prayer is about to start as I was speaking. And that's interesting because I was just about to say that this column has been isolated. The prayer has truly begun. Let's show some respect. But in this hidden little corner, we can see one of the wonderful mosaics here in the Hagia Sophia mosque, which is up there. It was hidden by fabric. You can see there white fabric to cover the mosaic, so that the Muslims praying down below aren't constantly seeing the image of Mary up there. It's not disrespectful. The image was preserved and is still visible from here. But they don't want interference from the Christian religion. Directly during prayer, even though Mary is often mentioned in the Quran, she is not part of their liturgy. Down here, we can see better what I was talking about from up there. When Muslims are here kneeling and praying, they have a view of the whole mosque and they don't see Our Lady with the child Jesus, because she is covered by those panels. Jesus is portrayed here with a serene expression, as you can see, but firm at the same time. He holds the New Testament in his left hand and makes a gesture of blessing with his right hand, symbolizing his divine authority and his role as the supreme judge. The mosaic depicts Christ Pantocrator, Christ the Almighty. What we're seeing here is a scene of the Last Judgment, according to the Gospel of Matthew, with John the Baptist to the right of Jesus and Mary to his left. At the moment when, according to Christian expectation, Jesus Christ will return to judge the living and the dead. This magnificent construction began in the year 532. It was a great challenge to build a cathedral of this size in just 5 years, as Emperor Justinian had requested. He hired two of the best architects that existed at that time. He put thousands and thousands of men to work quickly, defying all the laws of engineering and gravity. With this immense dome, more than 30 meters in diameter, which seems to float above what was once the church and is now the mosque. Even today, an absolutely impressive dome which was once the largest in the world. It continues to impress everyone who comes here to Istanbul and enters what now, as we can see also, is a mosque. It was the most important church in the world for a long time, the ultimate symbol of the Eastern Roman Empire's power, with its capital in Constantinople. It was desecrated and looted by Catholic warriors during the Crusades. It was converted into a mosque after the fall of Constantinople in 1453, then later into a museum, and recently into a mosque again. I'm here in Istanbul and I wanted to invite you to get to know it. One of the most impressive temples in the world, the church. Well, it hasn't been a church for a few centuries now. The Holy Mosque of Hagia Sophia.
This charming city was built over almost 2 millennia from the influence of two religions that remained here. Extremely important centers of power and devotion. Istanbul transformed the world even before it was called Istanbul, even before it was Constantinople. It was still known as Byzantium when the first Christians arrived here. Tradition says that it all began after the crucifixion of Jesus in the year 38, when the Apostle Andrew is said to have come here and founded the Patriarchate of Byzantium. We don't have any documentary evidence of that. Whether it was with the arrival of St. Andrew or other preachers, the Messianic Judaism of Christ began to become popular here, but the religion was forbidden and had to be practiced in secret rituals in caves, catacombs, or behind closed doors in the house of some disciple. But in the year 313, by signing the Edict of Milan, Emperor Constantine approved freedom of worship for all religions, and he turned this city into the new Rome, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire and the seat of the Patriarchate of Constantinople. Now, we're going back to the 6th century. The Byzantine Empire was experiencing a time of euphoria and flourishing. Justinian I is the emperor and wants to establish Christianity as the central religion of the empire after centuries of persecutions and conflicts. Emperor Justinian dreams of a monument that symbolizes the supremacy of his faith and that is more impressive than anything the world has ever seen. It was after the Nika Revolt, or the Revolt of Victory, caused by a dispute between chariot racing factions, that a large part of the city was destroyed. Justinian saw this as the perfect opportunity.
Everything we see here is practically in this architecture. It served to affirm the emperor's power and also to bring the empire closer to the church, which was becoming more and more important and powerful. Even the doors here reflect that. We're looking at the imperial door here. This door has been in exactly the same place since the year 537, which was the inauguration of Hagia Sophia. And only the emperor could pass through here. That's the information we have. It's very likely that religious authorities could also use this door, but it was dedicated to demonstrating the emperor's power at the moment he entered the church. A legend is a legend. There's no way it could have been true. What does it say about the wood of the imperial door, through which Emperor Justinian and later the other emperors passed? It was said to have been made from the wood of Noah's Ark, which had been brought here from the Holy Land, the same Noah's Ark that appears in the book of Genesis, in the Jewish Torah, in the Old Testament. Not everything that tradition says can be taken as truth. It's just a beautiful story that further enhanced Justinian's power. When you walk through this door,
during the cathedral's inauguration, the emperor entered through this door, and upon seeing the grandeur of his work, he is said to have exclaimed, "Solomon, I have surpassed you." It was a reference to King Solomon, known in Jewish tradition as the builder of the first temple of the Jews in Jerusalem, which was built around 900 years before Christ, described in the Bible as the greatest symbol of faith and power of antiquity.
Emperor Justinian did not choose this place here by chance to build his great cathedral. It was, and still is to this day, exactly next to where the emperor's palace was. It was just a short walk away. As it is, in fact, to this day, because later the emperor's palace became the sultan's palace, who then ruled this city, and that's how it has been preserved until today. As we can see in this image of the beautiful entrance to the palace, Hagia Sophia, this beautiful cathedral, came to represent the union between the state and the church. And it was interesting because at that time the Catholic Church, after a long period of being persecuted with deaths, martyrdoms, and everything that happened, during that period the Catholic Church became the unifier of the Roman Empire, which was immense and had Christianity as one of its foundations. From that moment on, the name Hagia Sophia confuses a lot of people because some people think that Sophia refers to a saint, as if it were a tribute, a cathedral dedicated to Saint Sophia, but actually saint means holy wisdom or holy wisdom in Greek. And holy wisdom within Christianity is something that can only come from God. The voice, "O men, I cry out, and my voice is directed to the sons of men. Understand, O simple ones, prudence, and you fools, understand with your heart. Listen, for I will speak excellent things. Accept my correction, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice fine gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and everything else that one may desire cannot be compared to it. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and possess knowledge that comes from good sense. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, the evil way and the perverse mouth. I hate them. Counsel and true wisdom are mine. I am understanding, and strength is mine." So many things were changed, erased. What could be done? They did it when the Ottomans took Constantinople in 1453. The first thing the Sultan decided was that Islam would be the state religion, of course, and that the Christian memory of this city had to be erased. The marks of Christianity had to be wiped out. And so hundreds of churches were converted into mosques. I'm talking about hundreds, really, and this one here is just the most important of them all. Hagia Sophia was also converted into a mosque, and it remained that way for many centuries. It was a museum until the 20th century, but in 2020 it became a mosque again. At that time, during the Christian era, when Justinian ordered the construction of Hagia Sophia, what you would hear here were Christian chants. Now, what we hear 5 times a day is the call from the mosque of all mosques, inviting Muslims to come and pray.
Allahu Akbar.
I could also say without any embarrassment, and every Christian could say this because Christians have always said the same thing: God Almighty, God is the Almighty. Allah Akbar means the Almighty, and Allah for Muslims is God, the one God, and He is the same God as the Christians' God. They say it in Arabic, even Turks who don't speak the language. When they speak to Allah, they say Allahu Akbar, which was the language of Muhammad, who said Allahu Akbar, God is the Almighty. Here, from this point where I am on the so-called terrace of the Hagia Sophia Mosque, we can see up close the mentions made to the various caliphs of Islam. Here by my side, we have the name of Osman, there's Hassan, and here very prominently, of course, the name of Allah, the Almighty God, right next to Allah. Well, right here in front of me, we see the mention of Muhammad, and there are also panels with the names of the important caliphs, the successors of Muhammad. And Omar is right up front with an interesting story. When Caliph Omar went to Jerusalem, he rode his horse to the Holy Sepulchre of Jesus, the city conquered by the Muslims. And he, with great respect, decided never to enter that very sacred church because he didn't want the Christians to stop worshiping Jesus in that place, which is respected and mentioned several times in the Quran. And he also didn't want the Muslims to wish to turn the sepulchre of Jesus into a mosque, like what happened here at Hagia Sophia. Caliph Omar ended up building a mosque right in front of the Holy Sepulchre of Jesus, which, by the way, is still there today. It's interesting that despite being converted into a mosque, the Christian marks were not completely erased. On the marbles, all of them here, which were placed on the wall, all the marble plaques, there are still crosses from the Byzantine era. There are many marks. It would be nearly impossible to remove them due to the centuries of history here. There are really countless crosses on the walls, some even carved to the point of breaking the marble. These are marks of history that can never be erased. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another. Just as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." This passage, narrated by the Gospel of Matthew, is the same one we see in the incredible mosaic called the Mosaic of Judgment. One of the greatest masterpieces of Byzantine art, Christ Pantocrator is one of the most striking images of Eastern Christianity without a doubt. I always think it's important to remember and highlight that a work of such greatness, such beauty, never had as its only purpose to beautify a church or cathedral. Of course, that was also an important reason, but it was also necessary to use images so that people could understand what was in the sacred texts. Few people could read then. If not everyone can read today, imagine back then. So, images have always had an educational function, to teach, to show. And really, when we see a scene, it becomes much stronger, even if it's incomplete. This image of Christ Pantocrator here in Hagia Sophia is incredibly powerful. It's interesting to notice in John the Baptist and Mary an expression of supplication that would represent humanity in search of mercy. The composition reflects the Byzantine belief in the intercession of the saints between Jesus, God, and men. Yeah, we don't need to be experts to see how the Roman face of Jesus has a lot of paint. It looks white on top of it, the face going down to the neck. Actually, this is all lime added by the Ottomans when they converted Hagia Sophia into a mosque. They completely erased this image. It was only rediscovered in the 19th century when French archaeologists came here to try to understand what was in the foundations of the church, the old church. And they ended up realizing that behind the plaster they had put here, there was this marvel from the Byzantine period. Some other mosaics were rediscovered over time, and this one here is one of them, showing Emperor John the Armed I Komnenos. In the center, Our Lady with Jesus in her arms. And on the right, actually, to the left of Mary, if we look from her point of view, Empress Irene, who gives her name to another church that's right here next door. In this mosaic, we see Jesus seated on the throne next to Emperor Constantine IX and his wife, Empress Zoe. The theme of this mosaic is the donation that was made by the emperor and his wife to Hagia Sophia, to the Cathedral of Hagia Sophia. Another mosaic that survived the transformation into a mosque, probably because it's in an area that's not visited very often. Almost on the outside at an exit to the garden. On the left, we see Emperor Justinian holding Hagia Sophia in his hand. He is the builder of the cathedral. On the right, Emperor Constantine holding the city of Istanbul in his hands. After all, he was the one who moved the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to the former Byzantium, later called Constantinople. And in the center, Our Lady, holding the baby Jesus in her arms.
While we watch the Muslims praying, I think it's interesting and important to show that the mihrab, which is this small altar, you could call it that, is located in the center of the mosque. It was moved a little to the right from where the Christian altar used to be, so that it would be exactly in the direction of Mecca. The church was built facing the rising sun, and Mecca was a few degrees to the right. So they shifted the center and everyone was facing that way.
This mosque is so beautiful. What an impressive place. How inspiring it is. How it gives us the feeling that we need to meditate, to stop and reflect on what we're doing, to think about our lives. If we are presenting ourselves to the world in the best way possible, being the best person we can be for others and also for ourselves, it's a temple, whether it's now a mosque, once a church or a cathedral, it doesn't matter. It still provokes in people the effect that a temple should provoke. What is historically understood as the connection between human beings and God, but also our connection with ourselves? We experience this here.
When Justinian commissioned this work, he wanted it to last forever. These walls have witnessed empires, invasions, wars, earthquakes, and Hagia Sophia still stands. Because it wasn't built just to be grand, it was made to be eternal.